Isn't God revealed everywhere? What does it mean that he's revealed in a sanctuary, in a physical place of all things? The Holy of Holies, the Ark of the Covenant? So the key is the word revealed. God is everywhere. Of course he's everywhere. But that doesn't mean he's revealed everywhere, right? It doesn't mean that he's openly able to be experienced everywhere. That's not the case. Now, potentially, yes, because that's the fact that God animates everything, and potentially everything could be a revelation of the divine. But there are some places that are much more, shall we say, sensitive and open to the divine. So that began with the patriarchs, that they were sensitive to the divine, so much so that they were able to set themselves aside and more rightfully said, to just be completely submissive, subjugated, surrender to the divine, that all they were was a reflection of it. So everything is animated by the divine, everything is only of the divine, but it's not surrendered to it in a way that it is reflecting it in a revealed way. So the patriarchs began that. And that's why they become what we call the forefathers, and we have the foremothers, who become the beginnings of the Jewish people. And as a result of their great divine service, they merited that their descendants, the Jewish people, would be in them, through them, of them, would be that divine reflection. So it began with great people that reveal it. We all had that experience at Mount Sinai, but it was too much for the regular individual, especially for, a BIT, being in training. So it was relegated, so to speak, or was brought at one point to a physical home, that in that home, God's presence was very palpable. So back in the day, people would, come to, whether it was in the 40 years in the desert or later on in Israel, 369 years in Shiloh, that there was the home of God, and then, of course, the final destination, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem on Temple Mount, the first and second Holy Temples, each one lasting 410 and 420 years respectively, until their destruction. The presence of God, the Shekhinah, was the abode for God, was there, meaning the revelation. Now, where is it today? What's of it today? That'll be in tomorrow's class. But this is where we're going is, as in the previous chapter, that in us, of us, and through us, we are an embodiment of the divine, and hence divine. And this is the uniqueness of what we're now going to, after owning all of your stuff that brings joy and dealing with it, after now refocusing your identity from trying to deal with the negative nature of the animal soul and to tame it, to subjugate it, to work with it. Now you're identifying with your godly soul. That itself brings great joy. And then furthermore, that you can extricate it from its imprisonment, from being locked up by the animal soul, not being able to truly express itself. That brings even greater joy. And as we have spoken yesterday and continue with this notion that we are an abode for the divine by the mere fact that we think about the fact that there's God is immanent, transcendent, and there's nothing else but his reality, and that is of me, in me. I mean, we're going to learn, starting in tomorrow's classes, it's through me. It's in me, and it's through me. And that's more to come. All right. Any questions? Two question marks before you ask a question, please. Rachel, to set up our tents with each of us in our place around the house of Hashem. And I don't know if that's a question or comment. Statement, don't know. When Mashiach comes, will it be too much to see and hear his open and revealed Shekhinah? No, that's going to be what's amazing about Mashiach. Whereas at Mount Sinai, it wasn't. But because of our efforts for the, since Mount Sinai, 3,333 years ago, and going strong, the fact that we have worked transforming us, transforming the world, so then that will be the vehicle that we will be able to accept that divine light that was too powerful on Mount Sinai because it was a gift to us. It wasn't something we worked to achieve. Thank you, Davida. Good question. Rick, do you think that God speaks through us when we tell others about Tanya? For sure. For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. God speaks through us when we do something, speak something good, his words of Torah. Now, we have to be careful with that. We can't become haughty with that. God's speaking through me, I'm special and you better listen. No, then God's not speaking through you. He may be speaking at you. Laurie, Jewish people have never given up hope. Is hope and joy connected? Absolutely. If you give up hope, then you become saddened and depressed. If you always have hope, that's joy. Absolutely. Yeah. Very true. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Instagram, we have some questions. Why were the Jews unable to handle God's voice? I assume that they were not on the appropriate spiritual level, like Moshe. What does that mean exactly? Why were they not righteous enough? Excellent question. Strategic question. They didn't prepare themselves, and that ties in with Davida's question about Mashiach. Since they didn't prepare themselves, it just came from on high. God revealed himself. I mean, they did prepare with the 49 days, but, it wasn't a lifelong preparation, and it wasn't generations of preparation as we're doing now for Mashiach. So, you need to be refined in order to be able to take such a lofty level of divine light in your soul. So they weren't refined enough. Moshe Rabbeinu was, and therefore he was able to. And that's what we're doing. We're refining ourselves, we're refining the world through every mitzvah that we do. Something we spoke about actually last night's JLI class at great length, which was, wow, for me, I hope for others. Dam, is there an application to learn Torah for beginners? An application. Um, I don't know what you mean by application. Do you mean like an application form? Or how do we apply it? I'm not certain what you mean, Dam. Maybe can clarify. Alice, was Moshe as much as a chariot of Hashem as the patriarchs? He was even greater. He's the greatest of all. The patriarchs, it doesn't say that the Shekhinah, spoke through their throat, through them, when they uttered, that was the utterance of God. Because recall, the fifth book, Deuteronomy, Devarim, is said in first person by Moshe Rabbeinu. He's saying it. It's not third person. And God, and Vayomer Hashem el Moshe lemor, and Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, speak to the children of Israel and tell them da 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 da. Right? That's third person. That's a narrative that's being told that what Moshe needs to do and da 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 da. Right? And the fifth book, Deuteronomy, is Vayomer Moshe, and I said at that time, Eschanan, and I beseeched the Almighty. I did that, whatever it is. It's written, much of it in first person, and yet it's part of the Torah. It's part of the 5 books of Moses. Why? Because it's God speaking through him. So I hope that clarifies, Alice. Thank you. Good, excellent question. So Dama, can you clarify your question, please? Any other questions? Before I lose the feed here. Yeah, there's a daily study. Thank you, Michael. A daily study app on Chabad.org that you can have. Absolutely, some kind of study guide for Torah beginners, like a curriculum type of thing. Not to my knowledge, I don't know. Simcha, did not everyone at Mount Sinai hear the words of Hashem? Yes, absolutely, and that's why their soul took flight, because it was too much for them to contain that divine revelation. Okay, so yes, that's what happened. Absolutely. Okay. Michael.
There's written that when at Mount Sinai, when the commandments we get them from Hashem, that after every commandment, the Jewish people passed away, and that they got resurrected after it.
That's what we're speaking. Exactly what we were speaking about.
Yeah. Is this because of the that we nullify our own self and our own agenda? That we have to nullify all our own demands before we can get the agenda of God in us. That we later, because afterwards he said, build the tabernacle and the Mishkan, and God could dwell in it. And later, when it's destroyed, we can God can dwell in us when we study Torah. It's the beginning from everything that the people died, that they can get God nullified.
So as you said, right, that Moshe Rabbeinu is a righteous person, very refined, so he's able to maintain and contain the divine manifestation in him. The Jewish people were not on that refined level, and therefore it was too much for them to maintain or contain that divine manifestation, and that's why their souls took flight. They had to be resurrected Um, you know, what that means exactly, I'm not exactly certain what that means, but it just means that it was just too much of a divine manifestation. It was, the light was too blinding, as it is when a very, very strong sun outside, right? That it just, it's too much. So this was the divine words of God that was too much for them, for their soul, not just for their eyes, not just for their ears. And hence, this is what happened. Exactly. Exactly. Didi, please share with us. Oh, okay. I saw his hand up. Maybe mistaken. Okay, I hope that brings a greater clarity to the issue at hand. Okay. More on this, we're going to continue. This is often what happens is that we are always like in the middle of a thought. We don't have it full, and we will get a fullness of it. Let me see just any more questions over here. Okay, Simcha answered her question. David, is there a revelation when we had to refine ourselves before pouring to bring the end of the Babylonian exile to now? Yeah, that's part of tshuva. Exactly. Exactly. Part of tshuva. Yes. Um, Jennifer, last night's class was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Um, Jennifer, is there a no, there's no password. You just let in 770 6085. Yeah, and there's no password. You just let in. Strategic. Just to clarify, God spoke through Moshe's mouth, through his throat, his mouth. And for no, Moshe is the one speaking, but who's speaking? The divine presence through him, right? He's the one who's moving his mouth, his lips. I, I don't want to. It's probably a really bad example, so excuse me. But and maybe it's just not nice to say it, like a ventriloquist, right? A ventriloquist talks, and the mouth is opening, right? So, but it's not that way, actually. You know why it's not that way? Because the puppet is literally only a puppet, right? And it's completely controlled by the puppeteer. That's what's happening over here with Moshe Rabbeinu. So that's why the metaphor was really bad. What happened? Um, that Moshe's talking. It's him talking. It's him talking, but he is so nullified. He is so one with the divine. He is so much expressing and revealing the divine that what's coming out of him is the words of God. It's the words of God. Now, it went through his mind. It went through his process. It's anybody when you speak, it has to go through your mind, right? It has to be processed. It doesn't just come like that. Puppeteer, it comes like that, right? The puppeteer is talking, and is here just, as if the puppet is doing something. The puppet's not doing anything. Complete control from above. And that's not what's happening here, because that means you lose complete, you you don't really have an identity. You don't really have a choice, and you're not moving your lips. It's not you doing that. No, he's moving his lips. I mean, with the power of God, obviously, everything is only with the power of God, as we know. But he's moving his lips. He is saying the words, but the words that are coming through him are the words of God. I hope that was clear. Strategically clear. Fatima, how do we listen to the Ram class that you missed. So it's if you go to Chabad Zichrein, Chabad ZK on Facebook, you can get previous classes. They're there. Today's class, of course, is to bring peace in the Ukraine and safety to all of the people there. Absolutely. Thank you, Samita. Absolutely. No question about that. That's what we need to do. We need to add in saying prayers. We said by services today, a prayer for the Ukraine. Our Torah study now is for them and in their honor and for their safe being. Does God hold our soul to Him when He spank us, or when we have that? Eliezer, Reza, does it? I don't know what your question is. I'm sorry. Does God hold our soul to Him when He speaks to us, or that we have control? I'm not exactly sure what that means, but yeah, God's. Yeah. All right. Beautiful. Wonderful. To be continued. Our conversation, our learning, our farbringen. Reminder, 1 o'clock, Rambam. On Zoom, 770 twice, 6085. Yes, we'll let you in. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zochin Kadeshim, Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege, a pleasure to share with you the Tanya.